Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's retirement ceremony as we pay special tribute to Chief Master Sergeant Brian W. Furr on his retirement from the Montana Air National Guard and the United States Air Force. I am Senior Master Sergeant Corey Callison, and I will be your narrator for today's ceremony. At this time, I ask everyone to please turn off all electronic devices. Also, throughout the ceremony, you will be given cues to stand and be seated at appropriate times. And as a reminder, during the playing of our national anthem, all military members should stand at attention, and our civilian guests should place their right hand over their heart. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the playing of our national anthem and invocation given by Chaplain Hessler. At this time, I would like to ask Chaplain Hessler to please come forward for the invocation.
Would you join me in prayer? Gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. Thank you for all the gifts and blessings that you've given to each and every one of us. We thank you for this opportunity to celebrate and to honor Chief Furr and his family for the many years of service to this nation and to our way of life. We thank you for Chief Furr's dedication, his service, his mentorship, his leadership, and the impact that he's had upon each and every one of us, personally and professionally. We thank you for this time. We ask for a blessing upon this ceremony. We ask that you continue to bless Chief Furr and his family in future endeavors. We ask for a guiding hand, a protective hand upon him and his family. We ask that all things would be done according to your will. And in your name we ask these things. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. It is my pleasure to introduce our distinguished family and special guests in attendance with us today. Please hold your applause. Chief Furr's wife, Tanya, his son, Austin, his daughter, Ashley, and fiance, Sam Liebland, his daughter, Kaylee, his father and mother, Tom and Sharon Furr, his brother, Jason Furr, his sister, Amy Peterson. Additionally, Commander of the 219th Red Horse, Colonel Jason Foster, and his wife, Anita. Senior enlisted leader of the 219th, Chief Master Sergeant Patrick Calco and his wife Jamie. The presiding officer for today's ceremony is Colonel Jason Foster. We are also honored to have the men and women of the 219th, past and present, and other distinguished guests here. We appreciate your presence and thank all of you for being with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Colonel Foster to the podium.
Thank you, Sergeant Callison, and again, thank you to everyone here today. White hats, Colonel Care, former commander of the 219th, chiefs, Joint Force Headquarters, and from the 120th, fellow 219th members, and Chief Furr's family. Known Chief now, since going all back to when I joined the unit over 10 years ago, and cover some of the different stories over the years, because I definitely am sad to see him go, but also, given his record of impeccable service, excited for all the things before him with Tanya and the family and other adventures ahead. So Chief was born in Shepherd Air Force Base, Texas. His father served in the Air Force, and so they moved around for a while. But spent an initial stint up here at Malmstrom from 82 to 86 is what I understand. Before heading to England and then coming back to Malmstrom in 1990 and eventually graduating from high school from Great Falls High in 94. One of the things that Chief shared was kind of a roundabout way. I guess it sounds like Tanya grew up on base and you guys actually lived across the street from each other on that first Malmstrom tour and didn't even know it. But Chief played with your brothers, but didn't know until later on when he was working downtown and you guys somehow made a connection. So I just thought that was hilarious. You literally grew up across the street from each other and then got married in 95. We're gonna plan a June wedding, kind of like your daughter has here in a couple of weeks. But you had enlisted into active duty and they wanted to send you early. Got through MEPS and they had basic and everything lined out. So you guys moved the wedding up to May, had 3 whole weeks together before he departed for the first time off to basic training, tech school, and all that. So Chief headed off to basic training, to all his initial skills training, and became a VM troop, and his first assignment was as a special purpose equipment mechanic. He was stationed down in Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico with the 49th Aerial Maintenance Squad. So for those of you who know, that's the Bear Base team. That's the team that goes all around the world and sets up the giant clamshells and other expedient structures. And so Chief, from the get-go, was in that type of expeditionary type unit, making impacts around the world. And it seems one of the big adventures you had was for Bright Star, an exercise that's held in Egypt. So in the late 90s, he got the opportunity to be in Egypt, which is pretty cool. But after 4 years, Chief separated from active duty and was a mechanic downtown Dodge dealership. But as we hear many times, a guy from high school that you knew saw you and said, "Hey, what are you doing? By chance, are you interested in the Guard?" Chief, after a few months out of active duty, thought, "Yeah, you know what? That sounds pretty good." He ended up joining the Guard less than a year later, to the point I think you were out about 9 months. Okay, and he didn't even have a break in service. He had still had a good year, so he had enough time on active duty. Had 9 months to. Did you grow your hair out, Chief? just wondering, but. Anyway, came back in the Guard, had a good year, and been here ever since. So went into March of 2020, and you were a VM troop up the hill. Yeah, you're right. My notes are bad. I wrote wrong. 2000, and sometime, and it seems that when you were up at the hill, you deployed to PSAT, old PSAT, so Major Oaks and crew. Not the new PSAT that we saw with old PSAB in 2002 days. But in September of 2004, Chief actually cross-trained into contracting. He was a contracting troop for a little over 3 years. So, which was, again, just some good experience, good broadening, especially in the logistics world, that he spent the bulk of his time to have some of that knowledge that he had in contracting. But in August 2007 is when he came here to Norris. Came into the VM shop, and this is where you've been ever since. Eventually, you became the chief of logistics, and that's where you and I spent those years working together. You and I with the logistics flight leadership in 2014. Okay, so we talked about Bright Star and PSAP, but he's deployed 3 times with the 219 overseas. So back in 2010, 2011, went to Afghanistan and took barbed wire. And when I asked Chief a little bit about that, all he said was concrete. So that was literally building a runway in the middle of nowhere, Afghanistan, and it was just concrete and just go. Then back in 2015, when we deployed to All You Need and we were setting up debts literally all around the AOR, you were the chief of logistics while you were there. And that deployment, 15 and 16, I think we arrived and we were at 4 operating locations, and we were literally standing up a new Red Horse debt every month for 4 months in a row, until finally the last 2 months of our tour. We did standing new debts, but we had all kinds of materials going out to support those teams. And so we stood up MSAT, the Red Horse debt, in Jordan, multiple locations in Iraq, and that was a very busy time. And the chief was helping making that, getting the vehicles, the materials, and getting it around so that it could get where it needed to be, so we could take care of our mission back then. So after we came back from deployment is when we started having some of our reorg and our UTCs. Our structure was changing, our manning was altered, and we had more airfield troops that we would have in our squadron. And Chief decided that he wanted to then, since he'd been Red Horse his entire career in logistics, he wanted to be on the operations side of the horse. And he did. He cross-trained. Now, knowing Chief Furr, Chief didn't take the easy path. He could have gone to a shorter tech school to check the box in any of the other 3 E positions. But Chief, as he does, he took the more challenging road, and because of the preponderance of our slots were airfields, he said, that's the tech school I need to go to. So he went as a chief and went through tech school and got his airfield AFS, and has been the chief of ops here in the squadron ever since. The other thing that when it came to our mobilization last year in 2021, Chief Furr was the ranking chief of all the chiefs that we were taking, and we had 6 of them. Okay, we had a lot of chiefs. One of the things that we looked at as collective leaders between the 3 squadrons and the trifecta was the importance of trying to have blended leadership representative of each of the 3 squadrons for our squadron leadership and our dev leadership. Chief Furr was that chief that I could put anywhere. I could put him as my chief for the squadron. I could put him in ops. I could put him in logistics. And I knew that wherever I put Chief, he was going to shine, and we were good to go. Just the nature of the dynamics of things that I assessed, I looked, and I needed him to be the chief of ops. And as those of us that were deployed, as things played out, that was the right decision. Chief, I just was grateful to have you as the chief of ops for everything as a squadron that we went through last year and to make stuff happen. I know it was a super challenging time, but your leadership in ops, and I know others will back me up, I've heard it from Major Oaks and others, about how you helped Force operations together the entire time. Some of the other things I think back to travels with Chief Furr, over both deployments, you know, we had numerous opportunities to go to chapel together at the D. There's a lot of frozen coffee we would drink on Sunday afternoons. Back in January, we had the opportunity to go to Vegas together and lose some coinage on the blackjack table, and have a few other drinks together enjoying that. And then also Chief and I got to travel around the AOR last year. Still remember going out to Jordan with you and the MSAT crew signing he and I up for a 10K in July, which we did. But that was a very memorable trip, and the fact that you know, we went through Iraq together, and can't remember what they loaded on playing with us, but that was a time I just enjoyed with you, Chief, just bounce around and seeing our airmen down range and seeing the great things that we're making happen. And then we also got to go to PSAP together before things really turned in August, and didn't realize after seeing the PSAP folks at PSAP that by the end of the month we'd be seeing them at the D. So some of those times that we had together and seeing the way in which you have carried yourself with respect. Also at times, while very great about encouraging and being professional, I've seen when you needed to use your boot in order to get some things done and make some things happen. But Chief, bottom line, when I think of what a chief should be, you've been that from the very beginning. And so I'm just honored to be here with you and your family today, for all that you have before you. And even as you mentioned, what were the favorite projects that you worked on as part of the 219 over the years? I think these are also telling the Chief. First one he said was Tabor Dam. How many of you worked on Tabor Dam project? Still got a couple hands in here, and he said he enjoyed that project because it was like, we're building a dam, okay? He just enjoyed it, blowing and going, real simple. We'll learn more about that later. And then he said the other project he enjoyed happened to be in Hawaii at the Hella Model Plantation. But he said he enjoyed that because it was red horse work in that there was work to be done, and you did not necessarily have to work within your NFSC. It was us, we've got to build some things, and you got to work outside of your tour field experience of what red horse does. Ops troop, BM troop, airfields, utilities, you name it. We're gonna do red horse work. And then the last one you mentioned was the Stennis project down in Mississippi, and that was just challenging. It was custom. It was unique. It wasn't very much scripted. There was a lot of make it up as you go, and also was supporting the special operations training mission. So it's worth mentioning before we go to Chief in his civilian job. He started out basically the bottom of the shop. Here's a civilian on Malmstrom. So after his time downtown, he started as low man in the totem pole, working his way up in that shop steadily over the years, and I know they miss him when he's gone. Also, I appreciate about Chief is he's a civilian during the week, but I know over the years he's had numerous opportunities to mentor and groom active duty airmen and NCOs in that shop because he's a chief of the guard. He's lived it and walked in those shoes. So, Tanya, to you and your family, Chief, thank you very much. And the other thing that we can all, as we go forth, we can also thank Chief for our 219 patch. So that bright patch that we've now had, just like there's no let up till the end going out the door, that was another thing that Chief wanted to make sure that he could make happen, so that his legacy continues to be established for all the years to come. So when there are people wearing that patch that don't know Chief Furr, we'll still know that patch, and our squadron is strong because of them knowing Chief Furr. Chief.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and remain standing as Colonel Foster presents Chief Furr the Meritorious Service Medal, Second Oakley Cluster, for faithful, dedicated service to his country and the United States Air Force. Attention to orders. This is to certify that the President of the United States of America, authorized by the Executive Order 16 January 1869, has awarded the Meritorious Service Medal, Second Oakley Cluster to Chief Master Sergeant Brian W. Furr for meritorious service 1 July 2015 to 30 September 2022. Chief Master Sergeant Brian W. Furr distinguished himself in the performance of outstanding service to the United States as Chief of Operations while assigned to the 219th Red Horse Squadron from 1 July 2015 to 30 September 2022. During this period, Chief Furr was responsible for the morale, discipline, and welfare of 59 personnel in 9 different Air Force specialty codes within Operations Flight. Under his direction, various engineering teams completed 10 projects valued at $2.5 million and across 6 different sites. Additionally, Chief Furr conducted an initial site visit for an innovative readiness project located at Old Harbor, Alaska, where he determined the construction practices required to improve and expand the village's existing dirt runway. His actions led to improved economic and development for the building and operation of a fish cannery. Furthermore, Chief Furr identified a personnel shortage and took the initiative to deliver concrete forms, construction hand tools, and a dowel mill drilling machine across 1,100 miles to the 119th Regional Training Site. His actions led to the successful completion of a $1.1 million rapid airfield damage runway Air Force used for expeditionary readiness training. Finally, Chief Furr guided 38 Joint Army and Air Force personnel on the $129,000 Slovenia deployment for training in support of an exercise immediate response. His efforts ensured 10 construction tasks on 2 different project sites were completed ahead of schedule. The singularly distinctive accomplishments of Chief Furr culminate a distinguished career in the service of his country and reflect great credit upon himself and the United States Air Force. Given under my hand, Jason P. Foster, Colonel, Montana Air National Guard, Commander, 219th Red Horse Squadron. Ladies and gentlemen, the retirement portion of the ceremony for Chief Furr will now begin. Please remain standing for the reading of the retirement order. Attention to orders. By order of the Secretary of the Air Force and Department of the Air Force, Special Order EK 3756, Chief Master Sergeant Brian W. Furr is relieved from his current reserve assignment and retired per AFI 36-3203 in Title 10, United States Code, Section 8914, in the grade of E9 on September 30th, 2022. You have been transferred to the retired reserve and your name has been placed on the United States Air Force retired list after 27 years of faithful and honorable service. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Colonel Foster will now present the retirement certificates. Certificate of Retirement from the Armed Forces of the United States of America. To all who shall see these presents greeting. This is to certify that Chief Master Sergeant Brian W. Furr, having served faithfully and honorably, was retired from the United States Air Force on the 30th day of September 2022. Signed, Charles Q. Brown, Jr., General, U.S. Air Force, Chief of Staff, and Michael H. A. Lowe, Lieutenant General, U.S. Air Force, Director, Air National Guard. Tanya, will you please come up on stage and do the honor of fixing the retirement? Certificate of Appreciation for Service in the Armed Forces of the United States of America. Chief Master Sergeant Brian W. Furr, I extend my personal gratitude and the sincere appreciation of a grateful nation to you for your patriotic service to our country. Your bravery and dedication in our armed forces help protect your fellow Americans during a critical moment in our history and contributed to a world of greater security and growing prosperity. Your devotion to duty, honor, and country, in keeping with the long traditions of the finest military in the world, embodied the American ideal of selfless service. Our nation owes you an incredible debt. Your commitment and the example you set will inspire future generations to serve with pride and to keep our country secure. You represent the best of our nation, and I join our fellow Americans in saluting your honorable service. I wish you happiness and success in your next chapter. Signed, Joe Biden, Commander-in-Chief. So Tanya's already on stage. We have a couple of certificates for her, one from the nation and one from our unit. So we would like to present Tanya with a certificate of appreciation for steadfast support of Chief Furr throughout his career. In grateful appreciation, the United States Air Force presents this certificate of recognition to Tanya for the commitment and numerous contributions that made positive impacts to the nation's defense. Thank you for the support which gave strength and purpose to your spouse's service, given this 30th day of September of the year 2022. Signed, Charles Q. Quinn, Jr., General, U.S. Air Force, Chief of Staff, and Michael A. Lowe, Lieutenant General, U.S. Air Force, Director of Air National Guard. And now from Colonel Foster. For dedication and self-sacrifice in support of the Air National Guard, Tanya Furr has earned the respect and gratitude of all of our members. To our country, we give honor. To our state and towns, we give security. To those who lend their moral strength to spouses serving both of those noble causes in the Montana Air National Guard, we give our warmest sincere thanks. Signed, Colonel Jason P. Foster, Commander, 219th Red Horse Squadron, and Chief Master Sergeant Patrick M. Halco, Senior Enlisted Leader, 219th Red Horse Squadron. Thank you, Tanya, and Colonel Foster, return to your seats. At this time, I would like to ask Master Sergeant Calvick and Master Sergeant Robbins to please come forward for the presentation of gifts for Chief Furr. So this gift here is a pendant from the organization. That is our guide-on, our unit guide-on, and also a plaque symbolizing or dating the titles you held in the 219th Red Horse, with our unit patches and unit codes. We also have our traditional Red Horse plaque that retired members get with his service dates from August 2007 through September of 2022. 15 years of service with Red Horse. Additionally, Chief Furr's family created a shadow box representing his career in the Air Force from Airman Basic to Chief Master Sergeant and all the different patches he's worn throughout his career. Lastly, Chief Alco and the chiefs from our Chief Council, Chief Westy, both Chief Kellys, Chief O'Connell, they have a gift from the council.
So on behalf of the Chiefs Council, we have a little plaque that was made for you. We had it made up. Let me kick you out of the room. This was suicide. was sitting down there, and I don't know if you all noticed, but of all the enlisted ranks, chief is the longest you've held. That's awesome. Did anybody know that? That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you, Strong.
Thank you, Chiefs. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Chief Master Sergeant Brian W. Furr, retired.
Before I start, I just got a few gifts I want to give you. For those that know me, I'm not a big talker, so I don't have a long speech prepared, but I did have to write some stuff down. Been to a lot of retirements over the years, and I see people just shoot from the hip on these speeches, but I knew as soon as I got behind this microphone that I would forget everything, so I had to write it down, and I actually wrote it down in a large font, so I didn't have to use my glasses. So. I want to start by thanking my wife, Tanya. Above everyone else, she's been my biggest supporter, and she sacrificed the most during my 27 years. During my military career, I'm always the one that has gotten the accolades and stuff, and she just hasn't gotten recognitions that she deserves. So if it wasn't for her support and dedication, I would not have been able to achieve everything. So Tanya, thank you. Next, I want to thank my kids, Austin, Ashley, and Kaylee. 3 of you have endured me being gone for all the special times growing up, like birthdays and holidays. It seemed like all my deployments seemed to line up with all those special times. So thank you to all 3 of you. Next, I want to thank my parents for raising me to be the man that I am today. You both set great examples for me to follow and demonstrated that hard work and dedication will always pay off. I want to also thank all the mentors that I've had over the years, specifically retired Colonel Rick Gayer, thank you for being here today, sir. Colonel J.C. Foster, retired Chief Master Sergeant Tim Zumbrum, who wasn't here today, retired Chief Master Sergeant Dean Sprague, Chief Master Sergeant Bill Gamrat, who's here today, and retired Senior Master Sergeant Joe Carter, just to name a few. There's been many mentors for me over the years, so this is by by no means an all-inclusive list, so I apologize if I missed anybody. And again, I just want to thank my fellow chiefs and the squadron members for sharing a special day with me. Today's a bit of an emotional day for me. You always say you won't get emotional, but then you get behind the microphone and you get a little emotional. So, military's been part of my life longer than it hasn't been a part of my life. I just kind of went through high school, not giving too much thought to what I was going to do when I got out of high school. Met my wife, Tanya, and we started kind of getting serious. And then it kind of hit me, I needed to figure out what I was going to do with my life. That's when I started thinking about joining the military. My dad had made a career out of the military, and it worked out for him, so I decided that might be a good fit for me too. I actually went down and met with the Marine recruiter first, and I could have been a Marine. So I talked to him, but he couldn't guarantee me the job that I wanted. And I wanted to go in knowing what I was going to do. I don't want to be an infantryman or whatever. I was like, can you guarantee me a job? He's like, no, can't guarantee a job. So we're next door to the Air Force recruiter, and they could guarantee me a job. So we had, like Colonel Foster said, we originally planned on getting married in June, but the recruiter was like, you want to leave in June? So yeah, I kind of moved things up a little bit. So we ended up getting married at the end of May, 3 weeks before I went to basic training. If I could give one piece of advice to the members of this unit, it would be always be ready for the next step or opportunity. Get your PME done, get your CCAF done at the earliest possible time, because you never know when that opportunity is going to present itself. I'm a perfect example of that. Always being ready for the next step. When I came into this unit, I just happened to come in at the right time. first line supervisors and leaders, make sure you're taking the time to deliberately groom your replacement. Make sure that if one day you are gone, that things will just continue as if you were still here. Last but not least, I want to thank everyone that had a part in putting this ceremony together. I know Senior Council put a lot of work into it, but there was a lot of others behind the scenes. Sir Thomas, those that it's just a lot of work that goes into it. Thank you to each and every member of this unit for making my job worthwhile. I can say that I'm genuinely going to miss this unit and the people. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve with all of you, and I take great pride, I will always take great pride in being a retired member of this unit. To the horse!
To the horse!
So, Chief Furr, that was great. So we will conclude today's retirement ceremony with some Red Horse pride and traditions. At this time, I would like to ask Colonel Foster to present the Royal Order of the Horse and the Order of the White Hat.
Royal Order of the Horse, to all whom these present shall come, greetings. Whereas, Chief Master Sergeant Brian W. Furr is awarded a life membership, whether he wants it or not, in the Royal Order of the Horse in recognition of outstanding service as Chief of Operations. Having resided for the past 15 years, 2 months in the 219 stable, and having assimilated the knowledge that it is the best of all horse stables, whether he believes it or not, and having demonstrated his proficiency before juries composed of heavy needers of the needs of the horse, lifetime member Chief Master Sergeant Brian W. Furr is now qualified to sally forth into a disbelieving world to espouse veracity and confidence while watching windmills or other earthly endeavors. Whereupon, by virtue of no authority, his recognition is conferred this 30th day of September in the year of our Lord, 2022. Signed, Jason P. Foster, Colonel, Montana National Guard, Head Job.
All right, lastly, the Order of the White Hat. 219th Red Horse Squadron bear witness that Chief Master Sergeant Brian W. Furr, having consistently demonstrated the highest levels of initiative, integrity, leadership, boldness, resourcefulness, faithfulness, reliability, technical knowledge, military spirit, dedication to duty, loyalty to comrades, and exemplifying the finest traditions of Red Horse, is forever honored and recognized as a distinguished member of the Order of the White Hat. The Order of the White Hat is an exclusive fraternity of fellow 219th Red Horse members who have honorably and selflessly served their country and state and are so recognized upon their retirement. This respected member of the Order of the White Hat always remains an esteemed and valuable partner in the mission of the 219th Red Horse, and therefore shall forever be welcomed and accepted wherever the horse serves. Signed, Jason P. Foster, Colonel Commander, and Patrick M. Halco, Chief Master Sergeant, Senior. Ladies and gentlemen, the men and women of the 219th Red Horse Squadron are proud to have served with Chief Furr and wish him and his family every success in their future endeavors. There is cake and refreshments in the back of the room. Thank you, the ops team. Thank you again for attending this morning's ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the playing of the Air Force song and the departure of the official.